Hey TSMO friends, one of the best storytellers in our industry that I know is Tony Kratofil, the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Engineer of the Michigan Department of Transportation. Now I have known Tony for all of the work that we've done together at the National Operations Center of Excellence over the last couple of years, and he truly is a champion. And for all of his efforts, he was awarded as one of our champions during our 2019 TSMO Award program. And it's great to see Tony to actually get this award because he embodies what we want champions to actually motivate us and empower all of us as the leader he has become in our industry. And so without further ado, Tony, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Hey, Patrick, great to be here with you. Thanks so much for this really awesome honor.
Yeah, Tony was recently awarded the TSMO Champion Award with Jim Tymon and about a week or so, or a couple of weeks ago. And I wanted to build off of that conversation that you had with Jim, where we were on YouTube Live, and just how you made the connection of TSMO within your career. So explain to us, Tony, like when did you really incorporate and integrate TSMO, and how did it really help your career throughout your time at Michigan DOT?
Sure. You know, I actually started my career in project development, right? Designing and kind of programming projects. And while that might not seem like a TSMO related thing, I was just always interested in innovative ways to get projects built faster or avoid impacts on traffic. In fact, I worked on my master's over 20 years ago. The thesis topic was on the benefits and costs of temporary ITS systems in work zones. And so I was always kind of, I think, interested in transportation system management and operations. I just didn't know it, and we didn't have that name for it back then. But then as I got the opportunity to really work more on the field operations, and particularly my time in Metro Detroit, where we were dealing with operations day in and day out, whether it was incident management, weather management, things like that, it just became a real passion for me. And I think the exciting part, as I saw through my career, is how system management and operations really became a core competency for us as a DOT, as well as DOTs across the country, and how it really became integrated into our day-to-day business. So it wasn't something just off on the side. It was something that was a consideration, whether you were doing maintenance or construction, and vice versa. It was something that supported maintenance and construction and helped people do their jobs better.
Yeah, thanks again, Tony. Now, your career has actually been an interesting journey. And what I'm really interested to see if we can talk a little bit more about is how you've actually integrated TSMO into your career journey and what has it done for you? Because I firmly believe that TSMO is one of those areas that we can actually use as a way to grow in our careers and also find some meaningful and work that is of value to us. And so, Tony, tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are.
So there's maybe two things, right? And you kind of alluded to it, is that people give us attention when there's something they don't like about what we do in the transportation industry. And if we're doing operations really well, it is transparent, right? There is nothing to complain about, or it's not like that big, exciting project that you can do a ribbon cutting on. And so trying to tell our story and explain to people what we are doing behind the scenes to make sure that their travel is reliable and safe is really something we got to continue working on. It's a tough challenge because it's not as sensational when everything's going well. I think the other thing, this is kind of inside the industry, is drawing a stronger connection between safety and operations. I think we inherently think the two are pretty well related, but we also kind of operate those as separate disciplines within the transportation sector. But the reality is a well-operated system is going to be safer, and a safely operated system is going to operate really well and have less crashes. And so I think there's a great opportunity for us to look at how we can implement operational improvements to save lives and reduce crashes, and similarly look at how our safety solutions can be part of an operational strategy as well.
Yeah, and you made a really great point about how sometimes when we do our jobs right, it doesn't really show because it's, there's nothing wrong, so there's nothing to complain about. And a lot of times, even within the DOTs, there's plenty of people who now, work under you as the chief operating officer and the chief engineer. Who are some of those people that you would say, could be recognized a little bit more, but that you always think about that, no one really realizes they have a job within the DOT? Who are some of the hidden heroes at NDOT?
Well, there's hidden heroes everywhere, right? I think of the people in the traffic operations centers and the control rooms, right, that are monitoring the systems, that are working with the police and emergency response agencies to deal with traffic incident management. I think of our maintenance workers. They're the ones helping set up lane closures and things to support the work that we're doing and to support incident response. And they usually don't get all the attention because they're not the firemen or the policemen and the folks that are really on the front line of that, but they're there in support. And those are really the heroes in my book.
Those are definitely people that we are looking to continuously provide resources and transfer knowledge and industry knowledge, but also with our new strategic goal of even workforce development, and this being a really big focus for our TSMO industry. Tony, your career has been just growing and growing, and I think it's still going to grow even with where you are now. But if you look back, and if you can, kind of what is some of the advice that you would give to different staged professionals, let's say the early ones, the mid-careers, and even the seasoned professionals, like impart some wisdom into our industry for us?
Well, I would say for people coming into the industry, I think one of the things I've noticed about many of the students and young professionals joining our industry is the passion they have for solving problems in their community or solving society's problems. And if there's a place where you can do that, I think TSMO and system operations is one of the best areas. It's an exciting field. It's multidisciplinary, so you get to work with a lot of people from different backgrounds and different skill sets. And you really can solve problems that make a difference in people's lives. You might not get credit for it, right? As we said, if everything's working well, nobody's going to draw that much attention to it. But you can see the impact that you're having when you implement those strategies. And I think that's really rewarding. It's really satisfying. Sometimes it's very tough when you're working on some big mega project and it literally takes 5 or 10 years before you see an outcome. Operational stuff, you can see the outcome within days or weeks or months. And really see how you're making a difference. And that's really rewarding. And so I often refer to that when I'm trying to recruit or encourage young people to consider a career in our industry. For seasoned professionals, I would argue, pay attention to these young folks, right? Not only are they very tech savvy, but they just have a whole lot of creativity and they're not hamstrung by the kind of mentality that, well, we've always done it this way, right? They're very open-minded to new ways of thinking about how we can solve these challenging problems. And I'd say, and I appreciate you allowing me to be a judge on the Transportation Technology Tournament 2 out of the 3 years that you've been holding that with the US DOT's ITS Joint Program Office. It is so great to see the amazing talent that is coming up through the industry and is going to be the future of our industry. And so I think, that it's a combination of respecting the history and where we've come with TSMO, but also, tapping into that excitement and enthusiasm and creativity that's coming up through the ranks now.
You definitely touched on something that has been just an exciting feature for NOCoE, which is the Transportation Technology Tournament and all of our student engagement. But we are really seeing an insight into the abilities of this next generation that are surpassing what anyone in the industry might have right now as it relates to AI, machine learning, algorithm-based analysis, right? And so I look at this progression of, in the old times, it was just formulas and you do some hand calcs. Then we got Excel and you could automate that a little bit. You got some good spreadsheet linking going on. Then we started with databases and you got database management. But to really have the knowledge aptitude to be able to think in algorithm-based analysis for different solutions is, I feel like it's a big leap. And so as you're looking at MDOT and the future of MDOT, there's a lot of different technologies that are coming that I think can revolutionize or even evolve the way that we do business, the way that we operate and manage and operate the system. But what about your perspective, Tony? What are some of those technologies that you're keeping a really close eye on because you see something fundamentally changing in our industry?
So there's a couple of things. I think the obvious thing is kind of connected and automated vehicles. And of course, when most people think of that, they think of kind of this giant leap forward, right, to where like all vehicles are highly connected or highly automated. And in my mind, it's really a very gradual progression. But as we get greater degrees of connectivity between vehicles and infrastructure, and by virtue of that, our management and our system management and operations types of tools, or as vehicles become more highly automated, that dramatically changes how the system works. And I think that's a big part of TSMO moving into the future. So I'm excited about the opportunities with that, and it's not something we have to wait for. Those things are slowly rolling in to how vehicles operate and how they interact with the infrastructure. And I think there's a lot that can be learned and gained in the immediate future. I think the other really interesting thing you mentioned, artificial intelligence and machine learning, is that those tools are rapidly becoming available. There's all kinds of services and capabilities that exist now that didn't exist even a year or two ago. And so that opportunity is really exciting too, with the wealth of data that is out there. The last thing is just the amount of different multimodal solutions that are coming about in the last, not even the last decade, just the last few years, that I think give us an opportunity to look at how we move people differently, or how people get around and get from A to B differently. And so we start thinking about TSMO as not just about moving cars and trucks, but we're moving people and we're moving goods and services. And so how do we think about that in more of a multimodal way? So I think the future is really exciting and challenging at the same time, but the future is bright for the TSMO world.
Yeah, and I share that sentiment because there's so many areas where we see real big leaps in the evolution of the way that we move people and goods. And even when we think about how we move goods, being more granular, the little robots that deliver food, that are driving around on their sidewalks, even something that the COVID pandemic has forced, which is a lot of curbside pickup. For a long time, retail, big box stores and restaurants, they were slowly integrating curbside pickup. And look at how quick we just made that switch over, and everyone prefers it. I really love, just going and saying I'm here and someone loads up my car.
It's really interesting amazing. with the pandemic, how quickly we've adapted to different ways of living, right? Yeah. And I think that's another interesting thing moving into the future is how do we leverage that ability to quickly adapt and leverage the technology that exists? How can we replicate that in a normal business environment, right? And I think that has huge implications for how we manage the system too, is there's great ideas, great technology that exists, and how can we take advantage of that in a more rapid way instead of waiting for years to develop or implement some of this technology.
Along those lines, Tony, let me ask you something that kind of is off the cuff based on what you've been saying, which is, from your position, a lot of times leaders have to remove barriers. So what kind of barriers are you seeing, are you working on actively at MDOT to take advantage and be adapting to this new environment quickly, but respectfully, respecting what was done before, respecting how we got here, and just the investment that was made and approaching in a safe manner? What kind of barriers are you working on within the industry, within MDOT, that we at the industry can actually learn from?
What's the phrase? You want to get something done, follow the money, right? One of the things we worked on, particular to operations, was trying to figure out a better way of funding our operations. We had all these little pots and silos and different ways of getting stuff done, which all made sense. Each one of those little programs kind of was developed with a purpose in mind, but in the end, they all kind of supported some operational goal. And so a couple of years ago, we went through a really significant process improvement where we tried to put all that stuff together under one umbrella and create an operations, what we call a template in MDOT, so that we're much more strategic about that and we can leverage those different funding sources and make it a lot easier for people that have a really great idea to figure out how they fund that solution and make it happen. Instead of having to, beg, borrow, and steal from every different area, they can kind of pool all their resources and get the biggest bang for the buck. So I think that was a really helpful strategy, and we're seeing the benefit of that now with the types of projects and ideas that people are bringing forward to use those funding sources. I think the other thing we're doing kind of relates to the AI and machine learning. Is just how do we leverage all this great data, whether it's our data or data that just exists out in the public, or data that can be purchased or acquired through other third parties, is to make better use of that from an enterprise standpoint. We have, a couple hundred different types of applications that use data within our department. And we're starting to take an enterprise information approach to how we manage all that data and those systems to be more streamlined and just collect data once, but use it multiple times. That requires a lot of strategy that even go beyond me, but we've hired some really key folks in the last year or two to help us figure out that strategy so we can leverage this new technology like AI as it starts coming online.
Yeah, that's really great to hear, especially as other DOTs around the country are following suit. They're approaching it the same way and really trying to take advantage of all the technologies that are being made available, even within the last year and the last couple of years. So wanted to ask you one last question here is, when you think about the industry, our practitioners, your colleagues, what kind of parting thoughts, give them a message, a feel-good message, a warm and fuzzy from this year's TSMO champion?
A warm and fuzzy message is that you make a difference with operations. You really do. Whether you get recognized or not by our customers, you're making a difference in making their travel more reliable and safer. The other thing I want to just mention, I want to actually give kudos to you, Patrick, and your team. The dream of a National Operations Center of Excellence has been around for longer than the center has, right? It started probably 5 or 10 years prior to that. And you've done such an excellent job of making that dream a reality. So I really want to encourage people to tap into the resources of the center and to reach out to you to get connected with others in our profession, because that's where the magic happens. Is when we start talking to each other, we're all working on creative, innovative solutions, and the pace of this is all happening so fast that our ability to really make that difference happens by making connections with each other and learning from each other. So great job with everything you've done. It was a great joy to be part of the startup of the center and to see you do so well. I just encourage people to take advantage of everything that you've created and really make the best of their operations programs.
Yeah, we definitely invite anyone. And thank you so much, Tony. It means a lot. He's been such a big supporter. And this is one of the few times where I always know he supports us, but then just to hear it, give me the warm and fuzzies. I really like kind of just your message. We really want people to connect with us, subscribe to our newsletter, go to our website. If you find something or you can't find something, get in touch with us. But we want to thank Tony once again for being on our show today. He is being recognized as an industry champion amongst all of his peers and was nominated and selected by some of the kind of top executives of our industry. And so with that, I want to just end on that positive note.